Daniel Ben Gedale. The gratitude that I have for coming here is beyond words. I had to literally, this is definitely sort of nefesh trip in all areas of my life, but I'll tell you one area. I was going to go to Eretz Yisrael just because there was too much heat across the board. It was just across the board too much heat. And then Rabbi Kramer, I just wanted to read you guys a letter Rabbi Kramer wrote to me that all of a sudden, and by the way, when I decided to go to Eretz Yisrael, I fell into major deep Mochem B'Kadmut, and I'm like, something's not right. I can't just give up then. And he wrote, Dear Gedale, I'm very happy to hear that you're making a Sefer Torah for my son Daniel Alav Shalom. Great idea, great mitzvah. I was so upset to hear you weren't coming to Rosh Hashanah. You've done so many things to spread the Rav Nachman's teachings. How can you miss out on Rav Nachman's tikkunim for Rosh Hashanah? In 1977, before the entry to Uman was granted, I took my two eldest children on a trip to Uman. The miniot I faced at every step were enormous. I felt many times that maybe I should abandon the idea. But I asked myself, if I stand back now, the next time the miniot come will be smaller, then maybe I'll stand back then too. So I continued and made it. I'm devastated that you may not be here. I love you, I'm thinking about you, and I beg you to come. Please rethink. That was the letter that got me here. You should know that. That was the letter. So I had my own mini oaths this year. I've never had it like this year. Obviously, this year was just beyond words. And it took encouragement from the outside. It took Rabbi Kramer's encouragement, which many times he has encouraged me the right decision. But just to show you, there's no words on how to express Rabbi Kramer's words. There's no words. Every single time, I'm more amazed and more amazed and more amazed every single time. As you say, the more you get into the teaching. Like Rav Nachman said many times, when you understand my teachings, I've been learning them for the past 23 years, you will see every single thing in the world in them. And to be able to pick up a psychology book or a New York Times bestseller and see, oh, that's Rabbi Nachman's lesson 65, that's 23, that's 22. There's nothing to talk about. There's nothing to talk about. So today I really wanted to give you guys maybe 10 ideas that I've had this year that really helped me, 10 ideas that came. And the first, I believe it or not, one of these ideas I actually got in the middle of coming here from my Turkish flight. Obviously, I have a major problem with ADHD. Rabbi, you missed the letter. I gave him the letter.
Where I am if I need to.
So, I've had this book. There's a concept in life that everybody's presumed to be blind until God opens up their eyes. And this book on tefillin, I've had this book on tefillin. So I asked myself, you know what? I can't travel that, how many books am I going to travel with? Let me just take the small pamphlets this year. Let me take the small pamphlets. I haven't taken it. So I read this book on tefillin, this flight, and I was really blown away. I was really blown away. So I'm going to talk to you guys about pretty much 10 things, 10 ideas that I got this year. That we're going to keep it, obviously, we're going to keep it short, because obviously the main thing is to get some of these ideas if they can help you or not. So what is the difference between what the world is getting and what we're getting? And this is a major aha moment for me. Working in the addiction industry, living in America where they tell you CBD is going to take away all your pain. The real CBD is Chokhmah Bin and Das. That's what's going to take away your pain. Not the other type. But what is, I have to ask myself, I'm trying to think, what is the world? Everybody wants a state of consciousness, different state of consciousness. For example, let's say somebody has social anxiety. What happens? They don't want to walk into a room. They grab 2 l'chaim, they grab 3 l'chaim. Next thing you know, wow, their confidence is up 120%. They walk into the room, they love everybody, and before they were scared to even walk into the room. What in the world happened with those 2 drinks? What did those 2 drinks do for them? What happens is when you drink, it kills the ego. What's making you feel insecure, when you drink, it raises your consciousness. Now obviously, you didn't really earn that. You took 2 drinks. You took 2 or 3 drinks, you feel great. You feel like you're present, right? Completely present. And next thing you know, after the thing is gone, you're back to the same thing. So, or let's say, whether it's marijuana or whether anything else, that is altered state of consciousness. You're altering the state of consciousness. Where Rav Nachman is talking about mochim gadlus, expansion state of consciousness. Big, big, big difference. The world is trying to put a bandage on a bullet wound. You understand? We have real bullet wounds out there. And the world wants to tell you, here, just put a bandage on this. And you're not going to get any growth out of it. And this is where I see to myself, who is growing and who is just putting bandages on bullet wounds? That is where I see the difference. I track. I go to Friday night, sometimes with different situations. You'll see the same people, no growth. Yes, they'll come Friday night. Or you'll see people in your community, there's no growth. Yes, whether it's this bandage on a bullet wound or there's another. And they're seeking any kind of altered state of consciousness. Because obviously they don't want to put in the work. I'm going to pretty much just teach you on this lesson, just an example on how to get this expansion of consciousness. Rav Nachman says when you get expanded consciousness, all the dinim are gone. The judgments are gone. Because the judgments only come because of the way you're looking at it. We can't sweeten the judgment until you go into mochim gadlut. Mochim gadlut, we're going to take two concepts, mochim gadlut and mochim gadlut. The worst thing that you can do is when you're in mochim gadlut, is try to alter the state of consciousness without any daf or Torah or any form. Because all you're going to do is push away darkness. And when you push away darkness, what do you think is going to come? More darkness. This is why in life, running away from pain is what's causing more pain. Such as when you resist, persist. This is where Nachman had many, many Torahs. Lesson 65 also, connecting to the concept that the more I resist that pain, bittul, you can't resist it. You're completely surrendering to it. You're nullifying to it. Where any other forms, if we resist the pain, we can't transform the pain. We can't go in because you're too busy resisting it. So what he's saying here is the difference between expansion and altered state of consciousness. And he takes this from the lesson in Tefillin. Again, I'm going to just give you small snippets. Otherwise, we'll be here till Shabbos. But what Rav Nachman says, mochim gadlus is connected with das. And how do we get there? First, you have to have the bridge to get to expanded consciousness is emunah first. First, you have to go to straight emunah. Because what happens is the mind cannot handle the situation in life. Mind cannot handle. So right away it seeks to escape it in any form of, because we don't have a keli. So the first thing we have to do when we don't understand something is go straightly into emunah, go straightly into bittul. That's the first thing we have to do. Because the minute we don't accept it, whatever you don't accept becomes suffering. Very simple. Pain is non-negotiable in life. There's no question you have to have pain in life, because without pain, you would never grow. And if you would never grow, you can never really be happy. So your higher self is going to push you at all expense in order for you to grow. It's non-negotiable. Pain is non-negotiable. Now, what you do with the pain is a whole different story. If you accept the pain, then it becomes growth. You work on it, you develop yourself, you get mochim gadlut. If you don't accept the pain, it becomes what? Suffering. And the way today, what's happening today, is suffering without meaning leads to what? Despair. Despair. Why in the world would you... If Rav Nachman told us despair doesn't exist in the world, right? Then how in the world can you get there? You can only get there if you have not handled the pain correctly, which led you to suffering, and then suffering without meaning is despair. So if we already know we have a tool, just like you gave a beautiful Torah on bittul. The bittul allows you not to go. Bittul means to surrender. It means to acceptance. It's basically 101 in the recovery program. I have a facility, 300 beds. Nothing happens. Nothing happens until the person officially surrenders. The therapy does not start until you surrender. Period. It could be 2 months you could be there fighting it. It could be 3 months. It could be 3 years. If you do not accept and go into Emunah, you can't even get to Mochim Gadlut. You can't even get there. Any attempt to avoid that area of your life will never let you get to Mochim Gadlut. Once you're in Mochim Gadlut, once the person has expanded his mind, he will recognize That his worst day is actually his best day. That the problem became the solution. Let's say a person is lonely today, right? So what is lonely? What does a lonely person do? He tries harder and harder and harder to get people to like him, right? He forces things on them. His low self-esteem will make everything about him. His solution is not to go to more parties to fix the loneliness. His solution, his problem is being lonely. His solution is to be alone. And recognize, why am I so dependent on people all the time? So the solution at the end of the day is being alone, to the loneliness. The more parties he goes to, the more communities he goes to, he still feels low self-esteem. So what? It's like a pregnant woman asking, how do I get rid of my labor pain? Oh, just go to New York. The labor pains are inside. You understand? So when we get to Mochem Gadlus, this is why the work is so much, and why Rav Nachman spends so much time on the emphasis of his bodhidus, and so much time on working and getting the Torah, not only having the Torah, but the tefillah. The combination of the Torah and tefillah are going to get you into expanded consciousness. You need them both. You need them both. It's lahavdil, like somebody working on his chest and now working on his legs. The legs give the strength to the testosterone is from the legs, which gives testosterone to the body. The more you work your legs, the more you're stronger. The same relationship, what I'm trying to do is give people in a vernacular setting, but the most important thing is you have to recognize, after Emunah, then comes the work. People think, oh, I have Emunah, and that's it, I'm going to get there. No, after Emunah, you're finally in the solution. You're no longer in the problem. Before Emunah, you're in the problem. Why is it happening to me? Why and what? A rational mind is always focusing on two things. Who caused it, and why am I going through it? That is a natural way of thinking. That really, the book that I'm trying to write, is I Surrender. Teaching people how, no matter how much self-help books you have out there, why do I need 35 self-help books? One guy couldn't have gotten it? It's because without his bodhidus, without the sila, which Rav Nachman gave us, you're not getting anything. Just like Rav Nachman tells us, very simple. If you take a matzah, you split it in half, right? He gives us the analogy that if you have a problem, okay, so you don't have a sex problem, now you don't have a gambling problem. You're not transforming yourself. You're not transforming your consciousness. You're altering the consciousness, choosing one thing instead of the other. And this is where today we're not looking at the big picture. We're too focusing on, again, who caused it and why is it causing it. And if that person just went away, Hashem, like you're practically talking like the mafia. If that person just left my life, all my problems would be solved. You think it's that simple, just to get rid of difficult people. And who do you think is going to show up? Somebody else. You're thinking, if my wife was just nicer, I would be so much happier. If my business was making more money, I would be so much happier. This is the number one way to stay in a problem. Because all you're trying to think is it's got nothing to do with me. Once I read and understood the concept that God does not change, it forced me to say, who's going to change that? If God does not change, and people you normally don't change, then who has to change? Oh, the work is on me then. That's when for example, let's say I have a situation with my wife, and I'm showing her some kind of resentment, and I'm expecting her to smile back at me, then I'm the idiot. I'm the idiot. I'm sending her that energy. Why would I expect her to smile back at me? So what is the form? A zamra. What do you need to do? Focusing on her good point. This is how you get to Mochem Gadlus. The first to recognize the Emunah means it's all happening for your benefit. Then start looking at what you need to see. And this is where he's saying here in this beautiful book that you get Mochem Gadlus as a result. First you have to go into Emunah, then you need intense study and contemplation. Then God gives you the Emunah. You'll find lesson 65, you'll find lesson 23, you'll find the Torah class. Because now you're in a vessel of Mochem Gadlus. But if we cannot, I always said, we cannot expect miracles on a victim mindset. A victim mindset is Mochem Gadlus. Any form of a victim mindset is Mochem Gadlus. Right away, expect nothing but more resistance and pain in that area of your life. When you start becoming a co-creator means something happened in our lives, lesson 49, Something happened in our life, we don't give it we don't give it any meaning, we create space. Space is lesson 49, create that vacated space. That space is the place where you can create either positive or negative. Is this thing happening for me or is this thing happening to me? Right away, if that vacated space, if you're not careful to guard and create that space with proper meaning, then all of a sudden that space becomes closed. You become closed as far as you'll never get to Malchut Gadlut. You'll never get to expansion consciousness. Because remember, things happen in our lives 3 ways. First, you get into a bad what? A bad mood. Something happens. Every single event, if you can close the door if you don't mind. Every single event in life, after every single event in life, you're going to have an emotion tied to it, practically. Every single thing that happens. You fight with your wife, you break up, business failure, positive or negative. There's always an emotion that is the end of that event. That emotion will continue to replay that event over and over and over again, okay, until it is elevated. So first it becomes emotion, then it becomes a mood, right? Then it becomes your personality. You ever hear that guy's got a terrible personality, horrible personality? What do you mean he has a horrible personality? His whole life he's living in the past. He's living in the past. Now, your personal reality, your personality determines your personal reality, correct? How you view the world and how you see the world is based on the events that you've had in your life, and that's how you will perceive the world. An angry woman who just got divorced is not going to, unless she does work on herself, she's going to show up to the next relationship, she's going to find something wrong, and she's going to say, he made me angry. How could somebody make you angry? How could somebody possibly make you angry? You can't get angry unless you have that anger inside of you. You can't be, nobody can really insult you or be angry unless you have. For example, if I have low self-esteem, it's much easier for me to be insulted. In 2 seconds, all a guy has to do is take my sitter from me and take my place from me. It doesn't take much because I'm self-centered. It's all about me. I'm holding that low self-esteem. That person just triggered what I already had. So the reason why, at the end of the day, we have to look at these problems as really solutions. This is where, I forgot who said this, but I've always said this line a lot. Prayer doesn't get you out of trouble. Trouble gets you into prayer. Prayer does not get you out of trouble. Trouble gets you into prayer. Because how in the world can you change your consciousness if you're not doing his bodhidut or doing praying? You're never going to get the awareness. Because remember, Torah enough is not enough. We know people that are extremely giants in Torah. But for their character, we know doctors that are phenomenal. They're great doctors, but their bedside manner is horrendous. Horrendous. Doesn't mean you need both. Doing his bodhidut and prayer actually transforms a person. How this happens, whether he goes through bittul, or God gives him awareness, or he's connected to bittul, whatever, how it happens, whether it's lesson 65 or lesson 9, where Nachman talks about how our relationships change in the face of our prayers. But when you go through this, then you start getting. We've all had events in our lives. When is that event no longer in your head? Why are some people replaying the same event over and over again? And why are some people, the past is actually growth? What is the difference between both of them? What is the difference? Why is one guy replaying the same bad movie over and over again, and another person saying, that's what actually made me? Why? Because memory, wisdom, is the memory without the emotion. Remember that. How do you get to wisdom? You have the same event, but you elevated it. Where you could say, my gambling addiction brought me to Rabbi Nachman. Do I need to go replay my gambling addiction over and over again? No, because the whole purpose of the gambling addiction was to recognize I was completely broken and I needed something, and I found Rabbi Nachman. Why would I stay in the past? Why would I talk about my gambling addiction? Why would I talk about anything? It makes no sense, because that event has been elevated. That is ultimately what we need to do. What we ultimately need to do is take all of these events in our lives that are not processed, and bring him to Mokum Gadlut. Okay? And bring him, elevate him to Mokum Gadlut, and that is done by a combination of Torah and Tefillah. Obviously, Baruch Hashem, the fact that I'm learning Breslov from Rabbi Kramer's books for 25 years, it's very easy for me to snap out of something. Because I know the Torah, I'll go straight into the Torah, I'll go straight into the Tefillahs on it, I'll go straight into the Torah, and that itself is the solution. How do we know that you came out of a situation, well, Rabbi Nachman says, 55, if you have a new mindset afterwards, right? If you come out of there with a different attitude, if you come out of there with a different mindset, with wisdom, and wisdom is the memory without the emotion. So this is the training that you have to understand. When you tell me you have no time to feel, no time for tefillah, no time for learning, then all you're going to do is alter your state of consciousness. You have to recognize that. This is not meant to be easy. It's not meant to grow through a problem and really, really challenge. And you have to recognize there's a price. Either you're going to spend the money on therapy, or you're going to spend the money talking to God, giving charity. It's whether or not who you're going to talk to. That's the bottom line. And believe it or not, after you talk to the therapist, you still have to go deal with the original issue and do the work. You understand that? It's not that if I just go to a therapist, my problem is gone. We all know that. People have gone to therapists, and they're still going to therapists for 20 years. Right? So even if you got the therapy, now you still have to do the work to get there. But because of the heaviness of the way our association with prayer and the association with learning, our heaviness, because we have Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Kramer's books really brought this to life. This is what we're trying to do, bring all this to life. You'll be excited to recognize, oh my God, the problem is the solution. Now there's a book called The Alchemist in the non-Jewish world. It's probably the most famous book out there. Basically, he talks about that the problem is the solution, very similar to the book called the story of the story of the bridge. The guy went to Vilna. He recognized that the treasure under the bridge. That is the Alchemist, by the way. The story of where the guy travels, at the end of the day recognizes that it was in his house the whole time. So this is why it's so important to recognize. Any attempt to alter consciousness is going to get you nothing. And this is what the world is telling you. Smoke this, breathe this, try this, try that. Without putting in the work of going through Torah and Tefillah, those two combinations, you'll probably have a membership there. Okay, so there'll be a new version of medication, there'll be a new this, but real change will not come. Real change will not come. And this is where we need to understand, we are here. And when you have, what does consciousness give you practically? When you have consciousness in life, which is that, in our world, you can transcend time and space do not bother you as much. When you have consciousness in your life, time and space do not affect you as much as other people. Okay? Because all our problems today are coming from accumulation of too much time, either in the future or too much time in the past. And that's what's taking energy today. That's why we can't restart the car all the time. It's too much accumulation. This is where Nachman Listen 61, the second half, says God is above time and space. And why we come to Uman on Rosh Hashanah, why we connect to Tzaddikim? Because the Tzaddikim completely have nullified time and space. How do you know that time and space is bothering you? Very simple. How easily annoyed you get. When you're praying, what time is it? I don't have 10 minutes to pray. If you don't have 10 minutes to pray, you need an hour and 2 hours to pray. You understand? Why are we so bothered? Why are we so bothered with tefillah? You understand the problem? We're bothered with it because we're saying we're not present, because if you were present, you would be in complete vacant, and you wouldn't even know what time and space is. You would be late to every meeting of yours because I got stuck in tefillah for 2 hours. When's the last time a guy told you I got stuck in his phone to do for 2 hours? I didn't even recognize the time and space was. I didn't recognize where I was. That's ultimately where we get to. How do you know you have a good tefillah when you don't even recognize time? Even lesson 124, where even the words come to you where you're actually getting the words to defeat God. Or lesson 156, where Rav Nachman says that you get that rush of energy. And that rush of energy is like Ruach HaKodesh. That is ultimately the peak moment that you want to get to. You can get there if you do this in the mornings, and you put yourself in a good state, and you have gratitude, and you get put music, whatever it is, you get to that place where you feel like you're on drugs, where you're in such a higher alter consciousness, and the flow comes to you, you're like, I don't need anything, I have this. And when you live like that I don't need anything, I have this, then you're just attracting nothing but brachas in your life. You're attracting nothing but blessings in your life. But when you're always waking up with lack, not spiritual lack. Spiritual lack, we all have it. Physical lack, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have that. You're basically in sleep. Because the key to receiving, what gets in the way of receiving? Usually desire. Such as, let's say, you want somebody to really, really like you. And the more he tries for him to like you, he's so needy that you're like, if you guys say, hey, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me at 3? Why didn't you call me at 5? The last thing you want to do is talk to him. Neediness and low self-esteem do not achieve. So the desire is actually what stops you from receiving. The same thing, a person wants to have a relationship with somebody. And the more you push yourself onto that person, the less they want to be with you. You're thinking it's the opposite. The more the needy salesman wants to sell you, the less you want to buy. So desire is coming from where? Usually Rav Nachman's telling us that desire is coming from a very dark, very sad place. He tells us it's human nature for us to be dejected sometimes. It's normal to be brokenhearted. But when we are broken, when we're brokenhearted, it's good because that brings you to God. But when a person feels depressed, and only, what do you think he's going to search? He's going to look for a void. And that's going to be usually money or woman. And the more you desire it, because that desire is not coming from a happy place. That desire is coming from a sad place. The less likely you're going to attract it. And usually you'll end up with both problems if you have to pick on the bris. Because if you can't handle pain well, if you don't have a muna, then what are you going to fall into? You're going to fall into sadness automatically. And then you're going to have, what are you going to have after? Now you're going to have to deal with all kinds of addictions. And guess what? After the addiction's over, you still have to deal with the original problem. That's the problem. So that's why I'm trying to explain to people. You have any time a situation in our life that we're going through, it's clearly to get into Mochum Gadol. And the only way to really get there is through the combination of Torah. This is not easy. Anybody that tells you that can I say that I've taken something and it's gotten me there to expand the consciousness just like that? It altered the consciousness, but it didn't change the way I viewed the problem. I've never in my life, and Baruch Hashem, I've had a lot of obstacles. I've gotten anything in my life if it wasn't through prayer, Torah, Tefillah, that got me to expand the consciousness. And once I was in expanded consciousness, I looked at the situation completely different. And when I looked at the situation completely different, I was embarrassed of how I previously looked at it. And that is lesson 6, the cleansing before, when you're so embarrassed, or lesson 38, you're so embarrassed that, oh my God, what in the world was I thinking? What in the world was I thinking? And this keeps on happening, over and over. So this is where I believe that my classes get you into the work. Instead of, first of all, get you out of you, and you're never going to get the answer with victim consciousness. And second, if you're in a victim consciousness, there's no way you have the energy to do the work. Because you think that you're being punished. So there's the problem. There's the problem. And this is the psychology of what I'm trying to just get people to shift to do the work. You know, there's a difference between imagining doing a book, reading, let's say I'm imagining a New York Times bestseller. That's not, those expectations are way too high. But I could imagine myself writing a page a day. So we have to start imagining ourselves doing that page a day. Doing the small wins. Our goals are too ambitious. If you want, you can let people in if you want. Let people in. Our goals are too, when you don't have, when we lack that, we don't have the right strategy. So remember, trouble is to get you into prayer. Prayer is not to get you out of trouble. Remember that. And the two places two places where you're going to see this the most is your wives or your shidduchim and money. That is the way you create to get your attention. He knows how to get your attention. A guy once asked me, "Can you do a ceremony for me at the chuppah? I need a chizuk for my marriage." I said, "Don't worry. You just got married and you need money. You don't. That will wake you up enough. Don't worry. You don't need that much chizuk. You'll see yourself. Those two have the ability to wake people up, and those two are connected. Your quality of your relationships is the quality of your. And I see this so black and white. I see my business going down. How's my tefillah? The first thing I ask, how is my tefillah? Then I'll go look into the business. Because even when you have good tefillah, and the purpose is not to change God, it's to reaffirm to yourself. When you walk in there and you say, "I trust in God," and you're building bitachon, and you pray for it, and you receive it, you're walking into your office completely different. When you're asking to become a good husband, and you pray for bittul, and you pray to see the good points in your wife, you are looking at your wife completely different. She's no longer your enemy, she's one with you. But when we are stingy with our prayers, and we're stingy with our time, because we're too busy worrying, then all you're doing is saying, outside is the issue, and inside I have nothing. I'm okay. And I'm telling you from my own experience, there's no other solution than this. I'm telling you, and again, owning a facility, podcast today is 40, 50,000 people. There's no other solution. Nobody's getting expanded consciousness unless they have this combination of Torah and Tefillah. Like the Rebbe said. They're getting off this state of consciousness. And they're telling you it's working. Yes, don't worry, 2 months you'll be back. Because the whole purpose was to get you to grow. The whole purpose was to get you into Torah and Tefillah. And this is where the world of psychology, the world of Teva, all Chachma, but trauma comes, they don't know how to get out of it. They're stuck. They don't know how to surrender. They think they're too intelligent. Or there's got to be a different angle, or a different therapist, or more money. No, you still have to do it. Still have to do the work. Otherwise, we stay in the problem. And when you do that, I have seen in my life many, many times where the problem always became a solution. So when I can go in Rosh Hashanah and say, and I surrender and I crown the king, I have no problem coronating the king, because I see it. I see nothing but blessing. I see nothing but good. But when I live in a victim mindset, how can I coordinate if my heart's not there? It's like saying, do you approve Biden for president? You can. But that's like a Jew walking with no kavanah. He's saying, yeah, I love Biden, but inside his heart is crushed. So that's the one thing that I want you to focus on. Not altering your consciousness, expanding your consciousness. And Rav Nachman says this is why Rav Nachman was able to constantly make he was always able to make a new start. And he's saying here that it didn't make sense that all of a sudden he had. Now, just because we stay and expand the consciousness, we're not getting a membership there forever. That means you have to, because if I got there, I wouldn't be broken. So this whole combination of getting there, next thing you know, I have nothing all of a sudden. This is where he says that as soon as Rav Nachman had, I saw this with the Rebbe over and over. One moment he would reach amazing spiritual heights, revealing his awesome teachings, and then immediately afterwards, miserable and dejected. He was miserable and dejected. How is that possible? How is that possible? That you got to such a high level, and next thing you know, you feel miserable and dejected. But that allows the new yearning for the new level. So sometimes we have to recognize you have to fall before you rise. And this is something that you need to understand, and you have to really, really put it into your heart, that it's okay that you're not feeling good all the time, as long as you're doing good. Because if you rely on your feelings, you're lost. And I've seen this many times where I start doing a class, I feel all of a sudden, I get this dejection. No, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And I get this tremendous dejection before a big event. It happens to me all the time. And I'm like, and I know at the end of the day, this is the Yetzer Hara. He never dejects me from going to a heat game. He never dejects me from anything that's shpiyot in my life. Only spirituality do I get the feeling of the Yeridot. Financially, we don't get that dejection. But you get the dejection after the high level. So this is something to also understand. The running and returning is so important. Because you're going to get to a point of clarity, and this is where I see a lot of people with the 40-day challenge. They'll get that 40-day challenge, and then they'll feel that desperation. They'll feel that lowness, that desperation. They'll feel like, what did I do? I did all this 40-day challenge for nothing. No, now you hit a new level. But you know, point is not going to solve your problem. That's for sure. That's for sure not going to solve your problem. So we already know that. So this running and returning is something that you have to live with also. And this is what Rav Nachman says. Quite simply, he never stayed on the same level. The reason why he couldn't stay in Malchum Babos is because how can you get to the next level if you don't fall? That means we are all broken, but that's how the light comes in. You have to break yourself to light the light. If you think you know everything, then how do you let the light in? And this is where making a new start was a constant thing about never becoming old. Never becoming old is you're either running or returning. You're running to Malchum Gadlut, or you're returning to eventually get to another Malchum Gadlut. And when you see this, it's not really about what you get, it's the process. And you'll hear today, it's all about the process. It's all about the process. Yes, it is all about the process. Muscle is made at night. Muscle breaks down, and actually they say muscle grows when you go to sleep. Muscle is made when you go to sleep. It means you work out, but the muscle gets developed when you go to sleep. When you're completely brittle, when you think you're the one making the muscle, no, that's the work. But the muscle grows when you're sleeping. When you're sleeping is when you let go. When you let go. And this is what we do every single time we put on tefillin. It's all about you get the new mochus. Now, if a person has worked and he's done his bodhidus and he's woke up with tikkun asos and he did what he did, as soon as he puts on tefillin that morning, he gets the residue of that experience in the tefillin. So sometimes you have a very strong hasos, you have a very strong night. When you wake up in the morning, your davening is completely different because you're actually getting the residue from the davening, from the night, the next morning in the tefillin. You get the piece of the vestige or the residue of the mocha. And that's when you put on your tefillin, you have to recognize, why do we put tefillin on in the morning? Because this is all about starting new. And if you see, it says it here also, that David Melech, that Rav Nachman is the descendant of David Melech. But David Melech was supposed to be a stillborn. He was supposed to be a stillborn, and yet he got 70 days. And we constantly say, David Melech Chai V'Chayav. Right? It's 70 years. Chai V'Chayav. He's constantly alive. Why is he constantly alive? Because with all the troubles that he had, he never stayed in the past. Everything was constantly restarting. And yet every single time we're reading Tehillim, what are we doing? We're connecting to the restarting. We're connecting to the restart. That is the key to your life today. Is to constantly know how to handle the failure and press the gas. Know how to handle the failure and press the gas. And you see this commonly, because sometimes, for example, you'll have 2 good weeks of Shalom Bayit, and next thing you know, you need to hit a higher level. How do you hit a higher level? There's a fight. There's an argument. There's a symptom. And that symptom, after that you handle that situation well, you actually got to a higher level than you would have gone to if you would have just been normal. What happens to life when we don't have problems? We actually get too comfortable. And that is the beginning of the end. So comfort is not an option, because you know what comfort does? Comfort leads you to the lack of growth. After comfort, you get lazy. So you need the wake-up call to get you there. And this is where we have to understand. Prayer gets you into the purpose of prayer. The trouble is to get you into prayer. Remember that line. Don't look at trouble as a separate thing. Because if you're looking at trouble, God forbid, without faith, now you're a victim. And how can you crown the king if you're a victim? How can you crown the king? Because you lose the emunah. We can't even get to the process. This is where today we're losing the connection. Why? Because the world is not talking about his bodhidus enough. Yeshivas are not talking about his bodhidus. Learn Torah. Nobody's talking about his bodhidus. Nobody's talking about changing consciousness to prayer. It's not emphasized. They're majoring in minor things. They're not majoring in tefillah today. And this is what Rav Nachman says. Why does Rav Nachman say Hisbodedus is greater than everything? There's a reason why. Because when you feel it, and you see how it changes you, and you become out of Hisbodedus a completely different person, and you regenerate, and you have new energy, and a new way of looking at the world, it's like you went to a $3,000 therapist an hour. Because remember, what's the blockage? The blockage is in the heart. And what is prayer? The tefillah of the heart. So that is something, if you don't have a set time for Hisbodedut, it's a problem. There's a certain amount of growth, in my professional opinion, that you can get to without that. I believe your growth is extremely limited if you don't have that combination. That's my opinion. I can only see it on people that I've dealt with. The same thing. Baruch Hashem, the teacher changed my life. I started doing 30 minutes ago. It's the same email over and over. I can copy and paste it. Baruch Hashem, this happened. I started doing it, supposed to do. There's no. It's like the guy telling you, I lost weight. I started exercising, eating good. Mazel tov. Yes, that's what's supposed to happen. Yes, that is exactly what is supposed to happen. Like, you wouldn't be shocked if somebody told you they started working out and eating well and they lost weight, right? They wouldn't be shocked. But there's some people that believe that it doesn't work. If you work out and you lose and you eat well, you're not going to lose the weight.